Well, Alf, we got tried yesterday.
What?
Yes, we got big timed. We did. By Pokene. I think it's Brian. Is it Brian over at Pokene? Let's talk about this today. I thought this was interesting. So my last video going back a day or two ago, it was about One Piece taking over Pokemon card investing. And I'm getting into One Piece along with Pokemon because I think there's room for both. But Brian had other things to say.
No, in all seriousness, though, the only thing this makes me think is how much of a bubble the One Piece TCG really is in. Like, there are that many people out there fiending for One Piece because it's the greatest IP of all time and the story is amazing and blah, blah, blah. I've always said it, guys, 10 years is a long time, so for the One Piece collectors and investors, I wish you the best of luck.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Stay to the end of the video because I'm going to talk about Poke YouTubers in general, these Pokemon investing YouTubers in general. I've been watching for a while now. I've got a few things I want to get off my chest about some of these guys. All right, so Pokene, in response to my One Piece video, he said yesterday, people forget MetaZoo investor logic was exactly the same. Mothman being in the thousands justified the Kickstarter box. They also forget MetaZoo TCG was more hype at its peak than One Piece. Truly wish you the best. Just get out before sanity returns. Money is there for now. Y'all playing in slightly longer term crypto. So first off, appreciate the feedback and appreciate the comment there. He's got 60,000 plus subscribers and he's been on YouTube for a while. I will say this is not my main channel. This is the non-sports card dad channel. My main channel, the sports card dad, larger channel that I started 6 years ago in March. So I'm not a newbie to YouTube. But I thought what was interesting about his comment back, this is the thing that always interests me, and I like debate on these sorts of things, especially when we're talking about highly speculative collectibles where everybody's the expert, right? Everybody comes out and they know everything about everything. Fine. Okay, but the comparison to MetaZoo. So what would a normal person do in my situation getting this comment? Of course I went to ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT, what's the difference between MetaZoo and One Piece? Give me some information here. Granted, ChatGPT isn't always right. It's not always the best, but here we go. So it said, One Piece, a story-driven media franchise, first manga anime with deep lore, has global cultural impact for 25 plus years. That's a fact. Huge Netflix show and that sort of thing. Multiple revenue streams, manga, anime, films, merch, events, games. MetaZoo, the TCG, a trading card game with niche appeal and experimental design, lacks a sprawling narrative universe outside of the card, so it's just the TCG. If I remember correctly, of course, MetaZoo failed, but I think it came back. Isn't Dan, Catch 'em All Collectibles, kind of trying to revive MetaZoo 2.0? I could be wrong there. I do keep in touch with Dan. Dan's one guy on the Pokemon side. He's great whenever I have questions about just, hey, what's going on in the market? I reach out to Dan at Catch 'em All Collectibles, and he's fantastic. I really like him. MetaZoo competes directly with giants like Magic and Pokemon. It just doesn't have any sort of a narrative, any sort of a universe outside of the card game. It says here, bottom line, One Piece is a cultural juggernaut, not a single product launch. MetaZoo was a category entrant fighting for attention in a crowded space. Now, not saying that ChatGPT is always right, because it's not, but I think, though, that was actually a pretty good synopsis. And let me know in the comments down below if it's not. But One Piece has the added IP there that MetaZoo just never had. It was just a TCG. Now, where I do agree with Brian is One Piece is a fairly new TCG. It came out in 2022, and it's just recently, we're in 2026 now, so we're talking 4 years later, it's starting to really gain traction, more mainstream traction. Let's say it like that, more mainstream traction. Even showed up on a recent episode of Chasing Cardboard, which is my buddy Ty over there, sports card channel, huge sports card channel. And there was a guy selling out of his sports card collection to get into One Piece. And it kind of like sports card guys are like, whoa, what? What's happening? What is One Piece? I'll play a small clip of that episode as a reference point.
Why in the world would you sell this stuff, man? There's another booming business lurking out there. We touched on it a little bit, but it's something called One Piece.
One Piece? What is One Piece?
There's a new TCG that just came out. The anime been out forever, about 15, 20 years now. Huge story, big following. But the TCG just came out and it's like exploding.
I'm gonna have to really process this. I mean, I knew he was leaving for something outside of sports cards, but when I hear One Piece and I hear TCG and I see the level of his collection, I don't know what I think about this yet.
I feel like in the sports card world, I would never get the Grails. I would never get the Mantle. I would never get the 86 Jordan. I would never get those cards, but I have opportunity to get the Grails of a new thing that's coming out, the One Piece. So as I'll show you later, like I really went all in on the One Piece too. So I want to take this all One Piece and just take a shot and see what happened. 10, 15 years later from now, we'll find out.
Wait, Okay, hold up for a second. Are you scratching your head about One Piece? Let me give you a quick breakdown. One Piece started as a Japanese manga way back in 1997, and it's now one of the biggest media franchises on the planet with over 1,100 episodes, 500 million manga copies sold, and a fan base that's absolutely massive worldwide. The trading game launched in 2022, and it's been gaining serious momentum ever since. In fact, over the past year, One Piece cards have climbed right behind Pokemon in PSA grading volume, and in some months, even outpaced it. What started as a niche anime fan base has turned into a legitimate collecting movement. Massive hits like Manga Shanks and Monkey D. Luffy have sold for tens of thousands of dollars, with high-grade copies climbing up the charts. So yeah, it might seem like a fad, but the data says otherwise.
So here's kind of the issue that I see anyway with the Pokemon YouTube investor gang. A lot of them anyway. For a lot of them, it's their business, it's their livelihood. Like 100% of their world is Pokemon. And so when I throw something out there and I have a Pokemon person come back and say, oh man, One Piece is trash, or, sports cards are trash, or whatever, SpongeBob cards are trash. I'm not going to take it as seriously when it looks to me like the business that you're running is basically zeroed in on one area, which is a great one. Don't get me wrong. Pokemon is the best IP for TCGs, hands down. Nobody's debating that. I guess I just don't understand why there can't be room for all of these things. The trading card market as a whole, because again, my main channel is Sports Card Dad. We focus around sports cards. I buy a lot of non-sports cards. And then I have a lot of sealed Pokemon stuff. My 11-year-old loves Pokemon singles as well, so we'll go to Pokemon shows. So I'm doing a lot of different things here. But there's room for all of it, and we have never seen a boom in the entire trading card space than we have now. So there's always a lot of talk about the Pokemon card explosion, which that is true, but that is really fairly new to the pandemic forward. So when there's all this talk heaping praise on, Pokemon is, it's the everything, it's all things. Well, it wasn't the everything going back 5+ years ago. Nobody cared about it in the same way that sports cards really made a comeback in 2020. And so to me, when I see something like, One Piece, or for any other of these Japanese anime card sets, I've been looking at all sorts of things now, because now I'm like, okay, I'm thinking, what's the next One Piece? And I'm not sitting here saying that One Piece is going to be, oh my God, it's going to be the next Pokemon, and 10, 15, 20 years later, it's going to be this insane buy that if you got in early on it, maybe it won't be. Maybe to Pokene's point, maybe it's just kind of short term, maybe it's just over the next year, maybe a couple of years, maybe it's the next 3 to 6 months, who knows? But I really like the idea that you have a variety of different TCGs that are having success.
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering is huge, and I just think that there are a lot more people that are getting involved in TCGs. And it goes beyond just sealed investors, because a lot of the Pokemon YouTubers, the Poke YouTubers, they're mainly sealed investors. And look, that's what I am too. So this is not a knock on that. And like I said, shout out to those guys for starting businesses and timing it up right and getting in kind of those, a lot of them have been in business for 3, 4, 5 years and they're crushing it. Good on them. I really like Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles. I think he started like 10, 11, 12 years ago. So big props to him. He was way, way ahead of the game and has done really well with it. So, it's not a knock on these guys, but you're all running businesses in the space. At least with Rudy Alpha Investments, he's running a business in the space, but he'll just straight up tell you like, hey, Bandai needs to print more One Piece. Hey, One Piece might be a big thing. He doesn't say like One Piece is trash or it's overrated or it's overly hyped, even if it might be right this second. We don't know. Nobody can see the future. Nobody knows what's going to happen. The big spec on Pokemon could slow down too here over the next year or 2 years. Maybe it never slows down, just keeps on going. But a lot of folks have just gotten so comfortable talking about the strength of modern cardboard. And look, this is not short printed type stuff. It's not. We're just in a very high demand environment right now. If demand is not high, then it looks exactly like 2022 and 2023 when they were $80 for a booster box. I don't think that we're going to see that anytime soon, but I think a lot of that has to do more with inflation than it has to do with demand. I think inflation is going to keep MSRP higher anyway. $80 a box won't happen again simply because, you're also not going to get a $2 Big Mac at McDonald's ever again. The world has become very inflationary. And bottom line, I don't really think the MetaZoo versus One Piece argument is a really good one. I think that's apples versus oranges. It just didn't really make sense to me. If Pokene had come back with a different type of argument, then I would say like, all right, that makes more sense. But that one didn't make sense to me. And that one actually, when he said that, then I was like, hold on a second. Maybe this One Piece thing is actually for real. Because if the Pokemon only folks are just simply looking at it as a TCG, like, oh man, that's just going to be another failed TCG. There's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more building underneath it. And I've done a lot of research on it here, especially over the last few weeks. I like to deep dive into this stuff. And there is an underlying collector base. A lot of it's overseas. There's a lot of people in the UK. There's a lot of things globally going on. The show is wildly popular. There's just a lot of things cooking. And so I'm curious to see how this Japanese anime type stuff does. Hey guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you a Pokemon only person? Are you a One Piece only? Are you trying some of all of it? Are you collecting it? Are you investing in it in quotation marks? Really, you're speculating in it. Are you putting sealed boxes in a warehouse, or are you buying single cards PSA 10s? Hey, before I let you go too, if you've never used PSA, I've got a code for you to save money. SCD25 code at the shipping and billing screen will save you $25 off that first PSA submission. Just a 1-card minimum to try out PSA. Hey, save a few bucks. Friends, have an amazing day ahead. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I'll talk to you again next time.